Yo, 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 welcome to episode 9 of the Elite Wrestling Club podcast, where we explore individuals' dreams and the unwavering persistence to achieve them on and off the mat. I'm your host, Lance Runyon, and I'm thrilled to have you join us for another inspiring episode. In this episode, Garrett Moll will be joining us as a co-host. We will be going behind the scenes with Nick Zeigler, who is an owner-operator of Dickie's Barbecue Pit and a part-time insurance agent, a former co-owner of Easy Wrestling Fundamentals, a coach mentor at Lodi Youth Wrestling, and has an active passion for providing affordable housing to do all. His company is Ziegler Affordable Housing. We will share personal stories and valuable insights, and we're excited to bring you a fascinating conversation that will inspire and motivate you to chase your dreams and achieve greatness both on and off the mat. So without further ado, let's welcome Nick Zeigler and dive into the Elite Wrestling Club podcast world.
Thanks, Lance. So yeah, you guys just kind of want me to start out with how I got into wrestling and kind of my journey in the sport that we all love.
Yeah, and I think the only thing Lance missed on the intro was your pro hunting guide too.
Yeah, so. Yeah. I mean, if you can help Garrett Moll kill something, you're definitely professional status, because that kid. I told him from a young age, I'm like, thank God your wrestling shots are a lot better than your shotgun shooting skills. You definitely wouldn't be wrestling in college.
Hey, we still got that turkey though, so it all worked out.
Yep. So yeah, lots of fun memories. But so yeah, I started wrestling when I was 5 years old. My uncle was a Lodi middle school coach, which now I'm the assistant there. So that's been really neat for him that I've kind of stepped into a little bit of, he was the head coach, I'm the assistant, works a lot better in my schedule. And our head coach at the middle school right now, Dwayne Daly, is just an awesome person. So he's doing a lot better than I could on that administrative side of things and just being a great leader. But yeah, so having my uncle that was super passionate about Lodi wrestling, and my dad enjoyed the sport, but he didn't wrestle. My grandpa was super close. As Garrett knows, growing up in Lodi, Jack Runyon led our program, graduated from the University of Wisconsin in 1976 as a two-time All-American and NCAA champion for the Badgers. And then in 1977, won a world bronze medal, continued training, and was trying to make the Olympic team in 1980 when they boycotted. So we just got super lucky that we're 30 minutes from Madison. And in 76, when that guy graduated, there was a Phi Ed teaching position open for him. And Russ Hellickson, who's a extremely legendary coach, grew up in Stoughton, Wisconsin, was Jack Rynuan's leader, mentor, coach, and encouraged him to take that job. So he was still close to the University of Wisconsin. And it was kind of like they were ahead of their time a little bit. They had an RTC basically there, and he was like telling young Jack Runyon, go teach at Lodi, and then you're only 30 minutes away from the Badgers, so you can come back and wrestle with our college guys. You can keep your international career going, because he could see how good he was and how driven he was. So, and sure worked out well in my favor and in, hundreds, thousands at this point, other people, because, between Jack Runyon mentored my uncle Laverne, and those guys mentored me, and, just how much those guys have meant to me. And, Coach Runyon, I'm sure you guys have those coaches in your lives and people in your lives that mean so much more than just the sport and what goals you did or didn't accomplish, because all of us wrestlers have goals that got away from us, but so started wrestling at 5 years old. I was really aggressive kid, but I didn't like it right away. I took last place in my first two tournaments, which isn't new, right? A lot of people have a tough start, but my older brother wrestled too. That was super important. So obviously as a little brother, you do what your older brother does. And so just got my butt kicked pretty bad the first couple tournaments, and then in a little local circuit, Garrett, the DeForest gold medal. Lodi actually wasn't big on starting youth real young, which we still aren't. And that's a different philosophy for a different time. But So I trained a little bit in Forest, went to their tournaments, and then finally my third tournament I broke through and got my first W, and really enjoyed it. But yeah, it was just difficult. The pressure at a young age of competing and being super competitive and being a perfectionist and wanting to win. So I actually retired in third grade, left my shoes on the mat, and for a year, but eventually got talked back into it with friends and people, and came back and learned how to deal with the internal pressure more than anything. There was never really any external pressure. I just had great people around me and an awesome family. My mom was super positive, and always, if I was paying attention, it was always pretty clear she wasn't going to love me any less if I lost a wrestling match. But yeah, kind of like Garrett's story too. Obviously, I'm here because I coached Garrett growing up. He was his first love, and I think from an athletic standpoint, not trying to speak for me, Garrett, but from what I could tell of, was very similar to mine too, in the fact that like Garrett was a really good football player and a really good running back. I was probably better, Garrett, but you were good.
I don't know about that.
But yeah, so we ran for a lot of touchdowns in the little Lodi youth football peewee leagues or whatever, and so I think as a kid, whatever you're really successful at, like you step on the football field, and if you're mildly athletic, especially in the little small town Wisconsin leagues, you're gonna run for touchdowns, and it's gonna be exciting immediately. You don't have to build skills as much like you do in wrestling. So wrestling was football was my first love. Thought I was gonna be like a Barry Sanders and go to the NFL, and I'm pretty sure Garrett probably felt something similar, but problem was didn't grow, really really small. So just started as middle school went on, got later into middle school, just my success on the football field was disappearing quickly, and it was heartbreaking. So I remember like sitting in the library at Lodi Middle School. I literally like vividly remembered. I could go back to the middle school and show you the chair, and I'm like, well, I really 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 like sports, really want to make my mark and be good. Guess I'm not going to the NFL because my body's not cooperating. I'm not growing. So I'm like, wrestling is it. Baseball, I gotta rely on teammates. That doesn't work. So I'm like, wrestling is it. I'm gonna really try to apply myself, and try to be a state champion, try to be the best I can be. Didn't really know what that entailed or what that looked like, but so yeah, I decided that in the Lodi Middle School library in my little brain, and yeah, it was just from there on out, we had, again, being close to University of Wisconsin, so much is just kind of luck and circumstances and being blessed to grow up where you did. Again, my mother was, awesome and willing to drive me to the University of Wisconsin 1, 2, 3 nights a week. Steiner, I believe it was Troy Steiner, who's now the RTC coach for the Minnesota Gophers. He either got let go from the Badgers or however it worked, had a falling out with the coach there, and started what was called Advanced School of Wrestling. They some of the current Badgers at the time, kind of like I know you guys do as well, like would put on practices for local youth kids. And remember Kevin Black would run it, or Donnie Pritzloff at that time, who was a big Badger wrestler. So that was awesome to get to go there and train. That would definitely help my development, help my passion. And then once I got into high school and met Coach Runyon, it was really over. Started like being able to draw that connection between like, hey, the harder I work, I'm gonna have more success, and I'm gonna catch people in front of me and run down goals. And yeah, just that was just like a light bulb moment late in middle school. Like, yeah, I can control my own destiny. And then that's when wrestling became my passion and my favorite sport. Yeah, once I just kind of really realized that, wrestling's like, I heard a quote, like, wrestling's the ultimate egalitarian sport, where, it's just equal. Somebody can be born more, athletic or stronger or quicker, but if you're willing to outwork them, and outthink them a little bit, yeah, you can beat them basically. So, and getting into high school and meeting Jack Reinwan, immediately he just was like, oh, if you want to get some extra workouts in, I'm here for you, and yeah, I don't know, just when somebody reaches out to you like that and they offer you, their time, and you can just see how much they care, and they're patient, when you're young and you're learning. Yeah. So I think, too, like for me, it's a big thing. I think it's more people than anything, now like coaching wrestling and things like that, as you get busier as a business owner and things, it's just like, and I don't know if like trying to win state championships anymore as a coach or anything like that's really something that's going to drive me to, load up my schedule even more with coaching and things like that. Like it's just probably not that anymore for me. It's just like that passion of, paying it forward, like Coach Ryan really poured into me, all these people in my life. And then, definitely, you know, so when I went into high school and probably overachieved a little bit, but felt like I underachieved more than anything when my career got done, and yeah, just had an amazing experience though, didn't check all the boxes of the goals I wanted, but had just an amazing experience. Really enjoyed my coach, really enjoyed my teammates, and learned so much from them. Like, I'm sure you guys will have experiences and will continue experiencing this. Like, you guys have an amazing leadership in Doug Schwab and all your assistants, like, and your high school coaches, your middle school coaches. Don't forget your youth coaches. They mean a lot. But just like the things they tell you and the wisdom they impart, it won't right away. It won't really sink in. You'll just kind of store it back in your brain. And then somewhere down the line, as you go through life, you'll be like, oh, man, this is what they were talking about. Like, okay, I can apply that here. Now that makes sense. So that was, yeah, they were just super helpful. But yeah, like tying into the business side of things too. My dad, my grandpa, started with my grandpa, I guess, my great grandpa, great grandparents came over from Germany, I guess, and started their own farm, and just always wanted to kind of like that wrestling mentality. Like, if I want more success, I want to be able to put in more work. I want to be able to outwork the competition, and get a little more out of life if I put in a little more effort. So, they were small business owners, farmers, grew that. And then my dad started his own construction business. And so grew up helping him with that. And, so I definitely had like entrepreneur goals at a young age. My brother gave me the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad when I was like 16 years old, like a junior in high school, sophomore in high school, whatever it was. And that was another one of those kind of light bulb moments. If listening to podcasts of like business people, Bigger Pockets, I'm a big fan of all those. I swear it's like 80 to 90% of those people, and they're like, oh, what was your favorite book? It's like Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Yeah, it's just a really good book. It's one of those books that it doesn't, like the saying, don't just give a man a fish, teach him how to fish, yep. And you'll feed him for life. Like that book, teaches you how to fish. It teaches you how to think. It doesn't just tell you start this business and things. So that was big. And yeah, I just think like growing up in my family, like not many people went to college. Definitely nobody competed in college. So I enjoyed watching NCAAs. They would show like the last two periods of the match. I'm dating myself here, but yeah. So when you guys were in diapers, I was watching NCAAs, and like they would show ESPN would show like the last two periods of the match, and it was awesome. I was always glued to it, like whatever it was, that third Saturday in March. But I just never really like instilled a super deep passion in myself to go compete in college. Knew I wanted to get my degree in 4 years and get out of there like as quick as possible, and just totally honest. Garrett knows this. Like I don't broadcast this to my young athletes, but like I'm more about like self-education than I am about formal education a lot, and sometimes too. So I just wanted to kind of get that degree and go do start my life, start my businesses and things like that. So and I definitely didn't have any elite coaches beating down my door either. So I definitely need to be honest about that too. So, yeah, got done at the University of Wisconsin in 4 years. And, I just remember my first job was in a cubicle. And I just remember that was like, oh my gosh. Yeah. So not not something I'd necessarily recommend if you guys can avoid it, even though it was awesome for me in the fact that I made some great friends and really realized that I don't want to do this,
Yep.
definitely not how I wanted to spend my life. So, actually had a former, wrestler and Lodi Wrestling alumni that I became real close with. And yeah, he helped us, we got into a franchise, a restaurant, like Garrett talked about, and, went that route. And again, like long-term vision, and not, restaurants aren't necessarily where I'm going to be super long-term, but it was just been an awesome thing to, again, I walked through that open door and I've learned so much about like leadership and business and things that you can't get, from an entrepreneurship class or a business class. I mean, they're awesome. I listened a little bit to your guys' introduction, Garrett, and you were saying, how you took or you're in an entrepreneurship like club, right?
Yep.
You were in, and like that's awesome. Where again, it's like getting you to think about ideas and come up with ideas, and here we are, with EWC, and it's just like you're walking down that path, and and then the things you learn, it will lead you into the next thing, and the next thing might go even better, or the next business idea, the next marketing idea. So yeah,
And
definitely found out that real estate, rental properties, as Garrett knows, like my next phase is like I want to affordable housing. That's like manufactured home communities, mobile home parks, things like that is definitely, the next phase. Found out I'm really passionate about that. Big surprise, my dad was a carpenter, so like just like remodeling, taking something that looks like junk and taking it to the point where it can be a nice home for people and things like that. You know, I think that was something I found, like, I don't know if you guys felt this way, like, but wrestling was something I put so much time into, starting late in middle school. Like 2-a-days were just very, very normal for me. They were what I wanted to do. I was very fortunate that my parents didn't tell me when to train or how to train. Coach Runyon, outside of the season, was very much like, hey, I'm here when you want to train. But if you don't ask me and you don't want to train, I'll see you in November, So it was just awesome in that way, where again, it was like he was not handing me a fish. He was teaching me how to fish. So I was like, all right, well, the weight room's open before school. So I'd go in there and I'd be like the only person in there with a bunch of adults, or get a drill in the morning. Uh, my teammates typically didn't train in the off season. We had a great culture during the season, but in the off season they were playing other sports or doing other things, and just they didn't train in the off season. So I was on my own, and then seek out these practices at the University of Wisconsin. And my mom was nice enough to, drive me in there consistently. And, so it just really helped me to figure out, like, okay, at a young age, you're almost like, you're your best coach. What do I want to do? How am I going to get there? Let's put together a plan,
Yep.
So,
And I think that's what you did for me a lot. At least what I remember is like you never forced me to do anything. Like I remember after every like high school season, you'd have like that sheet of paper with like our off season plan, like the practices, the camps, things like that. And like you never said, hey, you got to go to these. I'm just giving you the information for them. And I think that's what I appreciated a lot from you. I know there's some coaches that kind of like want to force things on you, and I think that can kind of push kids away sometimes. So that's what I kind of remember too.
Yeah, 100%. I wanted to make sure that you knew what opportunities were out there because, again, you kind of came from a wrestling family, but kind of didn't too, Like you guys didn't, you're like, what's freestyle? And you really didn't like Greco-Roman, right? And
No.
so it's just like, well, these are the Olympic styles. This is going to make a huge difference. And if you're not telling people, kids that are just growing up in the local youth program, wrestling in, November through February or something like that, they don't understand, like, it's like anything, if you put more time into it. But again, too, yeah, if you're forcing people to do it, you see it all the time in youth, and we get criticized for it, which is fine. That's normal as a coach, right? As a youth coach, like, you guys should force more people. You guys should really be pushing more competition, and again, we want them to have the opportunities, and we want to make sure they really, really understand, like, this can benefit you, but ultimately, like, you have to be the one that wants to we can open up the door, but you have to be the one that wants to walk through it. You're not going to get anything out of it if your parents are just dragging you to a practice or dragging you to a tournament. You know what I mean? So,
Yep.
yeah. I mean, I'd be curious to hear, I don't know if that's how this podcast is supposed to go, but I'd be curious to hear, like, what your guys' thoughts on that, and Lance, kind of what your experience was too. Like, were you kind of encouraged, or?
I don't. I think it was more like I really love the sport, so I think it really came from me. And then same kind of thing. I was just provided with opportunities from my parents, and they were willing to drive me to a club, a high altitude wrestling club, and really just. I mean, I started at a young age, so it was like rolling around in the living room, did some different practices, and it was like, all right, like the best guys are getting private trained. So if you want to really be serious about this, then we're gonna have to find a club. And I actually got my butt kicked by one of my good buddies right now at a tournament. I bumped up, wrestled like two grades up or whatever. You know how you can do that, bump up a age division. And he was wearing this singlet, and we were like, all right, like we're just gonna go here. He kicked your butt. Can't beat him, join him. It's like,
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's
but
kind of like what I remember too. Is like Nick, you kind of touched on it. Was like I don't think I fell in love with the sport until probably like 7th or 8th grade. And I remember it was after middle school season. Like you came in after practice, the last practice of the year, and you were just like, "Hey guys, like for anyone that wants more time on the mat, I'm gonna be showing up here after school for you guys." And I think we only had a few kids that decided to show up. And to this day, I still don't know what made me want to like keep going with it, because I was always, as soon as season was done, I left. Like you wouldn't see me till next year. But I don't know what really drove me to doing that day, but I'm pretty thankful that it did. And I think the rest was kind of history for our relationship and what kind of came about that.
Yeah.
yeah, I guess
Yeah.
I remember too. I mean, in the summer, I guess there was always like camps and stuff that were out there, and I went to a lot of camps, but it wasn't. I didn't really start competing in the summer until after my 7th grade year. So once I started doing freestyle and Greco, then I started competing more in the summer and getting into that. But really, I would just do a lot of camps and stuff growing up. So, but I had a couple questions for you, Nick. I wrote down just a couple things that you mentioned. You talked about pressure at a young age, and that made you kind of want to step away from the sport a little bit, and then coming back, you learned how to deal with that. Is that something you remember dealing with? Was it like a mindset shift, or what kind of was it that helped you with that realization?
Yeah, it's a good question. Um, I just remember, just getting, and it's funny. I don't know. I think sometimes we're genetically predisposed to certain things like entrepreneurship and different things like that, because I watch my nephew go through it right now, and he's the same thing. Like, yeah, like my stomach was just like, man, the butterflies, the nerves. But yeah, I mean, just it's like anything you can learn to take from it. What I found that really helped me with it, big shocker, was training harder and putting in more preparation. I found like the harder, the quote again too, like the harder you train, the more you prepare, the less pressure you feel to win. It's like that just that should not make sense. Like the harder you train, the less pressure you feel to win. I don't know if you guys have noticed that, but like I think it just comes down to, you just feel more prepared. It's like if Garrett's like, hey, you got to go give a speech for EWC, and I'm gonna be like, well, okay, but I need some time. I need to prepare some note cards. I need to really, run through it and really train it, rehearse it. Okay, then when it comes time to do that speech, I'm gonna feel way less nerves and feel like, okay, I'm prepared. Whatever if this is what you want me to do, yup. Or as you're just like hit me with it on the fly, and you're like, hey, you got to do this right now, and I haven't prepared anything. So I just think just more training and feeling better prepared, and definitely listening to my coaches and knowing, like, for me, that's probably part of why I'm just like, man, if I train really, really hard and I push myself really, really hard, I'm going to know that I'm better prepared than that guy, and then also just too, I think like it's so important to get to the point where like losing doesn't feel like it's the end of the world or you're a failure, like I remember just like a switch flipped. Not that losing really, really hurts, right? We all know that. But like, I remember in middle school, finally, it's like you said, like all three of us here, it sounds like, really started doing freestyle in about 7th grade, which, yeah, I think that seems to be the age I've heard where that's like when kids can really start, their minds really go, okay, what do I really want to do with my life? They can start, rather than just kind of going in a direction their family's taking them, they start making their own decisions and passions and things. But yeah, I remember making like the schoolboy, it was called back then, whatever it is, 12U now, 14U, and
Yep.
like the freestyle and Greco traveling teams, and we went to Indianapolis for these like duels, and I got hammered pretty bad, especially in Greco, and just being like, okay, like this isn't personal, like I can go back to practice, I can go back and train. The Badgers are still having practices. I can go back and train and figure this out and get better. And I think, like, for me, so much when you're young, you don't, like, that's the hardest thing for me to teach these young athletes is maybe they're, don't have a great work ethic yet. Maybe their parents are forcing them to come to my practices, whatever, but they're like, when they lose, it's just so bad. You know what I mean? Because they don't see any way of beating that guy that's in front of them, you know? And once they finally make that connection, like, man, going to practice isn't just because coach makes me do it so I can go to competition or mom and dad take me here and drop me off. Going to practice and then even taking it a step further and staying after practice or going to my own workouts, this is how I can turn around those losses. This is how I can catch the people in front of me. And I think once you make that connection, you're like, okay, well, this loss isn't that bad. Just give me some time. Maybe I need it. Maybe I need months. Maybe I need another year. I need a full summer. Let's catch up time is in the summer, right? That's why you go to camps like what you guys put on at Lodi and things like that. This is going to help me. Hey, that guy beat me by 3 points last year. I'm going to go to this camp. I'm going to pick up a setup. I'm going to pick up something to get off bottom. I'm going to learn how to finish on him if he's shin whizzering me and I can't get through that. And then I'm going to get him next year, and maybe you do, maybe you don't, but you can feel that you're closing that gap. So yeah, I just think like that autonomy. I really think that's a short story long, but yeah, just feeling like you can start controlling your destiny.
Yeah, and I could feel that too. I mean, I remember when I was younger, if there's a kid that maybe pinned me the week before or beat me pretty bad, like I don't know if I was mature enough back then to realize like, oh, I could practice and catch that guy. Like kind of like Doug says, like if you're gonna catch somebody, you got to go faster than them. Uh, and yeah, I could definitely see that being kind of what's going through their heads at that age.
Yeah, absolutely. So you know, um, again, we talked about like 7th grade. I could go into my opinions on that. Like when your mind is actually prepared to start figuring out what you're passionate about, right? Like you know, um, just passion wins. I remember like listening to like Tommy Rollins talk, and he always say like his kids are getting into wrestling. He was obviously a legend for Ohio State, and his quote was, "You can't legislate greatness." It's like it's no matter how much I enjoy wrestling and how passionate I am, I wasn't gonna force that on you, Garrett. Like either you liked wrestling or you didn't. I opened up the doors. You had many peers that were right there with you that never took to it as much as you did. You know, I wasn't going to be able to instill my passion in you. That's for each individual person, and they have to decide. And for some people, wrestling's not it. There's some people where I guarantee if you go back and talk to all three of us here in this podcast, you go back and talk to our parents, and they're like, man, Nick, Garrett, and Lance, when they were little, they were, abnormally aggressive little guys, just aggressive and energetic. Like you hear that about. I think you just kind of, again, you're a little bit of that is you're genetically predisposed to a sport that's hyper competitive and for the aggressive guys. And so,
Yeah, I think my parents would say that I might have been diagnosed with something if I didn't find wrestling. It was so weird when I was young. It's like if I didn't work out or if I didn't go out and do something, if I just sat around all day, I would all of a sudden just be bouncing off the walls. I mean, it was like I still feel it like to this day when I just sit around and I like if I don't get a workout in or something to just kind of calm me down, it's like my head's racing, I'm bouncing off the walls. I got an insane amount of energy. So
yep. Yeah, absolutely. So that might be, you know, ADD is probably, not to go off on a tangent, right? But ADD is constantly overdiagnosed this day and age, right? Everybody's, this kid's got ADD, this kid's got ADD. That kid just needs to get into a wrestling room, you know?
Yeah.
When we're recruiting at our elementary school, man, we're looking for the little boys with ADD that are ornery and sorry about that, and picking fights out on the playground. The kid's got ADD and he's a fighter. All right, we want him in the Lodi Youth Wrestling program. That kid's a pain in the butt. Perfect. The more ornery he is, the more we like him, you know, if he's a fighter. And, you know, I heard like, it's like ADD should be called personality type E for entrepreneur, you know? So like you said, yeah, probably, yeah, Lance, you definitely going to have some entrepreneur tendencies in you too. Then like when you, again, going back to like how I told you guys, like my first job out of college was like sitting in a cubicle. No, I got way too much energy for this, you know?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think that's going back to that, like the business side of things is like, I've heard that so many times, like you see a lot of these successful people, they're usually diagnosed with something like that too. Like I saw in this video, it was saying like, when you are diagnosed with that stuff, it's like you're hyper focused on sometimes the wrong things, like maybe your phone or like doing different things. But usually if you're interested in something, you're pretty hyper focused in that. So whether it's like the work you're doing, the business you're creating, they almost have like a hyper focus tendency with those things, which tends to help them obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't kind of going back to, I had a train of thought before that, you know, you're exactly right. Like ADD, you know, I'm sure I have it. It's not a deficit of attention. It's way too much attention. I have like that's why, like, you know, you're saying like I'm an insurance agent part-time. I do real estate, remodeling, or whatever, you know, I have a bunch of things going on, coaching and wrestling, all this stuff. Just like constantly a ton of different energy and balls in the air at the same time. Well, that's how my mind works. I kind of need that. Otherwise I'll get bored, you know? And just like you said, like we all know, like when you're wrestling, like you ever get into like just a great drill, like you have a certain practice and you're just like, man, I know I'm getting better. You don't even think about it in the moment. You get done and you're like, yeah, I just got better. Like that hour and a half went by like that in like a second. Like that's a flow state, right? Where you're just like, you know, you're doing something you're super passionate about. And, you know, like wrestling was that for me in like middle school and high school. I was super passionate about it. It wasn't hard to go train. It wasn't hard to go run or lift weights or do hard workouts and things like that because I was in a flow state. I was passionate about it. And I just remember graduating and like, oh, all right, I guess I'm going to go to college. Not real passionate about that, but whatever. And I was never passionate about academics and school and stuff like that. Like, knew I needed to get my degree in 4 years and get out of there. But, and that was just my path. I definitely encourage other people to really take academics seriously. I know you guys do a great job of it at Northern Iowa. So kudos to you guys for disciplining yourselves in that academically. But, you know, like I said, again, going back to that first job out of college, I was just like, I'm not a good employee. I'm unemployable. You know, I'm crap, you know, like, of course I had that wrestler mentality where like, if my boss told me to do something, I was going to work hard at it and get it done the best of my ability. But I was just like, I am so bored. I'm so not passionate here. I need to find something where I get back into like that flow state where I have that passion again, like I did in wrestling. I missed that. I knew that was like missing. And I'm like, I don't know, whatever I do in my career, you know what I mean? Things have to line up. Like, you know, that people say, follow your heart. Well, you can't follow your heart if you're not making any money, because let's just be honest, you know what I mean? Like, greed is not good. Being totally focused on money, we all three know that's not good. but you have to make money. You have to make a living. And if your passion and your heart is in a business that's bleeding money or just not hardly making any money, that's not going to work. So for me, I was like, okay, I have to find a business where I can make a healthy income that I enjoy, but that I'm also in a flow state when I'm doing it. I'm really excited to do it. And I think that's something that's hard to describe to people that maybe don't own their own business or something like that and aren't really passionate about their careers. Is like, I'm super excited on Monday mornings. I don't understand people who are like, oh crap, Monday's like, I'm jacked up on Sunday night. All right, I get to go chase my goals again. And it's like, things in real estate and things like that people that are not passionate about real estate are like, what? But yeah, that's okay. You got to run your own race, right? So
yeah. And I know on the first podcast with Lance and I mentioned like my stepdad Ben being a huge influence on me wanting to go into business. But I'd say you're probably up there too, Nick. Is growing up around you, like you had Dickie's. I worked with you for doing the trailer homes for a little bit. Just kind of seeing the ins and out of what you do and kind of talking to you on like road trips or in the car. And you were definitely a big influence for me wanting to try these different things as well while I'm still young.
Yeah. I appreciate that, buddy.
Nick, I've also heard you, touch on it a lot, but self-education. You really liked wrestling because you didn't have to rely on your teammates, right? So a lot of it is self-driven. A lot of it is, that if you put in the work, like you have the ability to be successful. Is that like a mindset that you had since you were young? I know you talked about it when you were young, but or how did you develop that?
Yeah, great question. Again, I would say just being fortunate, is me. It means the world to me that, Garrett has said like he feels really fortunate to have met me and that I mentored him and passed those things on to him. And like, yeah, just for me growing up around my parents, work really hard. And obviously my dad was self-employed and came from that mindset and that kind of family. So that definitely helped. And then, again, I just want to give my parents all the credit, and then obviously to, my family, but Coach Reinwan, again, I just can't like overstate that enough. Like, yeah, I'll get emotional talking about like what that guy meant to me. You know what I mean? And just,
Yeah.
He was really, he embodied work ethic, I'd go in the mornings to lift weights, and the guy was 50 years old and he's already in there. He 50 years old and he'd outwork everybody, all of us teenagers, and do a one-arm pull-up, whatever, I'm sure it's the same thing you guys see with Doug, right? These guys are physically, they're just total alpha males, but the way they treat people, is not in the today's society terms of alpha males. They're just high character guys that are really treat people with respect, and just how he operated, that's the best way to teach someone, right? Is to just kind of be a good example, more so than any lecture or anything, right? So just seeing him, I think.
Yeah, he's got a pretty cool fanny pack too.
What's that?
Yeah. He's got a pretty cool fanny pack too. He wears around now.
Yeah. Is Schwab wearing a fanny pack yet?
Not yet. That's later in life, I think, for people.
Drew Foster was wearing a fanny pack the time I met him. What's that?
I said we're still working on getting him a gold chain.
Oh yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the guy personally. Followed his career. I don't know if I see him as a gold chain guy, but you guys know him a lot better than me. But yeah, he definitely should get a fanny pack. Like I said, some of the toughest dudes I know wear fanny packs. So
I'm not joking. There was a day where, like, I don't know if we were at Doug's for something or if it was just somebody left their chains in the locker room, but he had like 2 or 3 chains on one day when he walked in. So he's like out here like 3 chains hanging. He's like, yeah, somebody left these. If they're yours, just let me know and come get them. And then it's been a joke ever since then, like how we need to get him a chain because of that.
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
hilarious.
absolutely. You guys are, just seeing Garrett when he graduated and going through, figuring out where he wanted to go to college and stuff like that. And it's just like, uh, wow, how lucky you've been just to be mentored by Doug Schwab, and then obviously, B Rob and Roper, right? And Lance, your coach, he seems like such a good dude. His name escapes me for a moment here. Who's the
Randy.
assistant that you were coached by a lot? What's his name? Randy, right?
Yep.
And I'm sure
Yeah,
I'm missing other
Randy
guys,
too.
but yeah, I mean, yeah, just Doug sets the culture, right? Doug's at the top. He sets the culture. He's brought in just phenomenal assistants, that will have just have an impact on you guys for the rest of your lives and your guys' children someday, and just what they've done. Like, I just can't overstate that enough. Being a coach now and you can just look back and go, this is so much more than wrestling, so much more, and just Garrett telling me these things and you guys telling me these stories about Doug Schwab and seeing, what kind of man he is and how he operates with his family, seeing his wife post on Twitter and stuff like that. Like, I just could not be more grateful that Garrett went there and is, been under the tutelage of Doug Schwab and company, and that culture there. So I can clearly tell like you guys are grateful, but yeah, I think he just totally seems to me like definitely one of the best coaches in the country. For a lot more than just the wrestling, but a darn good wrestling coach too, obviously.
Yeah, and I mean that sounds like something that you've used too. It's like your experiences and the people that you've been around. It's like you're almost grateful for it, and that gratitude is what like drives you to want to be successful in everything you do.
And give back too. Like you're
Yeah,
doing
Yeah,
you're doing what Coach Ryan did for you, for me, and not just me, but you got the Caves, the Door Horses now that you're mentoring, and I mean really all the Lodi youth and
yeah,
upcoming
like you
kids.
said, paying it forward as a coach is what you said, but you're also paying it forward for I'm sure the people that work under you that are employed in your businesses and stuff. So
yeah, yeah, absolutely. It goes so much further beyond wrestling. Um, one thing that was a really difficult, I think, almost like transition and hard for me to figure out is like coming from wrestling in high school and things like that. Like, man, everybody is your competition, right? You're constantly trying to just kick everybody's butt, outwork everybody. Like, that was my mentality, you know what I mean? And then just like once you get into um the business world, from a leadership standpoint and things like that, like the thing that's been on my mind, I know Garrett, we've talked about it when we have breakfast sometimes, is like it's not so much competing with people anymore as much as it's about collaborating with people.
yeah,
Like you guys are collaborating right here, and Garrett by himself or Lance Runyon by himself is capable of taking this podcast to a certain level, right? But when you guys collaborate, it's man, it's not just you don't just add up Garrett and Lance's capabilities, you multiply it, and it just goes through the roof, and just like learning that mindset of how can I collaborate with these people and how can I add value to them, you know. There's just an old motivational speaker, Ziegler, that would say like, the best way to get everything you want in life is to help enough people get what they want, first, and things like that. And like that was paradigm shifting for me. That was really like, yeah, I thought like, just growing up in wrestling, it was just like that was just Coach Ryan was way better mentor than that. Clearly, I didn't always pay attention. Clearly, but it's like, yeah, don't just be a meathead and think like I just gotta outwork these people and outdo them and yada yada yada. Like really, you again going back to you can clearly tell with your guys as coaches. It's about collaboration and just how they work well with each other. And I mean, I've listened to multiple interviews about them and just super impressed how they really really get it. And I remember bringing Garrett up there for some of the first RTC practices and walking in and like the culture of like just how some of the guys on the team then you guys weren't even on campus quite yet, and just how like welcoming they were, you know It was just
Yeah.
incredible. And I it was the one gentleman, I think he must be on the Panther Wrestling Club board, and he was just like telling me a story about how there was a woman in the area that was really down on her luck and just having a rough go of things in life, and she needed to like move from one home to the next. And he like asked if a few of the wrestlers would help out, and he's like, these guys showed up on a Saturday morning, moved all of her. She is just like depressed and just going through a bit, and there's like, not only did they move all of her stuff, but they were like joking with her and like picking up her spirits. And it's like, these guys are 20, 21 years old. They're doing this in college. I mean, these guys are Division I college wrestlers. These guys are the alpha males. You would have thought they'd have been hung over on a Saturday morning, whatever, and like only thinking about themselves or something like that. That is definitely some college athletes, some college people in general, and it's like not in this program. It was just like when that guy told me that, I was like, man, this is so awesome that Garrett, someone that I care so much about, is going to come join this culture. He's going to fit right in and add to it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
something that Doug's instilled since day one. Like it's more than wrestling, and you've said it. It's more than wrestling. It's bigger than wrestling. It's not as much I care about your wins and losses and how you end up doing. Obviously, he's going to help us achieve our goals. We set out to achieve our goals when we step on campus. But really, when we leave here, he wants us to be better men. So he instills those characteristics and the lifestyle that he has within him, that high character that you're talking about. So it's pretty special to see and be around and to hear you say that. I'm sure it it would be nice for Doug to hear. He's not a guy to post that stuff or anything really. It's all behind the scenes, all the stuff that he does. But yeah, to know that people notice, I mean, they definitely do.
I think it's cool too. Like, I never thought about it. He says like wrestling's a good way to express who you are as an individual. I think that I don't know when he said that, but when he said that and I heard that, I'm like, that's pretty cool. Like, wrestling is a good way for you to express who you are as an individual, whether it's your work ethic, how you compete, the moves you use, or things like that. Like, I think sometimes we think we have to fit in a bubble sometimes on who you have to be in life, but I mean, just be yourself and just run with it.
Yeah.
Nick, you want to get into some of the lessons that you learned in wrestling, and how you've applied them later in life? I know that's something you mentioned at the beginning. Just different lessons you picked up here and there that have helped you in your entrepreneurship. Different things that you do.
Mm-hmm. I mean, some of it's probably just like everybody probably talks about, just, that insane work ethic. Like, okay, I'll wake up at 4 a.m. if I have to, or whatever, and just having a good routine every day of taking care of yourself, so you're at your optimal level to be able to work hard, and being willing to do that. Just like, remember starting out when I first started. The restaurant industry is just rough, especially when you're starting out a business where nobody knows what they're doing. And like, I'm not kidding. Like the first how many weeks it was 100-hour work weeks, and I didn't feel like I had time to take a break to eat or go to the bathroom. So that works well, as you guys know. When you don't eat or drink much, you don't have to go to the bathroom. So, and just like in the first 2 weeks, I was in pretty good shape, like starting out. Not in college wrestling shape, but I was in pretty good shape by normal people, and I lost like 12 pounds in the first 2 weeks, and like I remember just being like not taking the time to drink and being super dehydrated and being like, well, thanks to wrestling, I've been here before. Like, I'll be fine. Just keep working, and just, so, I mean, that's the obvious stuff, just like the mental toughness and things like that, but again, like going back to like kind of what I already said too, like collaborating with people, not competing with people, how you treat others, no matter what you achieve, and I think I've seen Doug tweet that, like when he recruits guys, like, if you think you're the man because you dominate in a sport, you're probably not a place for you here. Like, great if you're awesome at wrestling. What kind of human being are you? What's your character level? And I think just realizing that, like, you'll see it in business. It's just cool. Like, right now, I'm just constantly finding more and more and I've had so many to this point, just having these awesome mentors. They're my coaches. When I wanted to get better at wrestling, I found Jack Reinwand. You guys want to get better at wrestling, you find B-Rob and Randy and Doug, and they show you the way, and they make it quicker, the path, and it's just like, I find that in business. I want to be that for the next generation of small business owners and business owners too. But, just, I think really, really seeking out mentors, working hard, not wasting their time. But I think, so a big thing for me, is just like, wrestling teaches you is like, when you're starting out, you're like, okay, this is where I want to be. It is so far away. I have no idea how to get there. I don't even really know the first step, and I think for a lot of people, that's really daunting. And it's like, no, I'm sure for a lot of people right there, it's like, I don't even know how to go about that. I'm not even going to start, starting a new business or whatever it may be. And I think just like wrestling really helped teach me, Coach Rowan always talked about like self-confidence. There's a difference between self-confidence and being prideful and arrogant. Huge difference.
Yep.
Coach gave our speech to our graduating class, and I just remember it was about self-confidence. And it's like, having that self-confidence to go, this is a daunting thing to start a new business and to get it to where I want to be. 3 years ago, as Garrett knows, during COVID is when I started the Ziegler Affordable Homes. I had no idea what direction to go, but it seemed like there was an open door there and I should walk through it. So I did, and and every day I'd wake up, make a mistake, learn from it, come back the next day, maybe, oh, that worked. All right, well, that didn't work, and okay, let me get a mentor, and just finding these incredible people to learn from and collaborate with, and just chipping away at it day by day by day. And then all of a sudden you look back a year, 2, 3, and you're like, holy cow, things are starting to come together, So I think wrestling just really, really taught me, like, the progress that you can make if you're willing to not take losses too difficult, not take failure, but I think something that's really important to talk about is like engaging in critical thought. Like, just stop and let's stop and really think about this. Let's have a plan. Okay, why did I fail today? Like, that's just like my biggest thing. Obviously, all of us guys as wrestlers, right, we're pretty hard on ourselves, but like, okay, when I make a mistake, it costs me money, or my employees make a mistake, well, then that's on me though too, as a leadership, right? Like, I'm sure, as a coach, like, hey, if my athletes win, they did a great job. All the credit goes to them. And if my athletes lose, that's my fault. What didn't I teach them? You know what I mean? So, just kind of, when my employees are successful, it's because they're awesome people and they're working hard. And when they make a mistake and we lose money or tick off a customer, whatever it may be, miss a deadline, get set back a little bit, well, that's on me. How could I have had better standard operating procedures? How could I have communicated better? How could I have followed up better? And things like that. And yeah, I guess just not being overwhelmed by how far off your goals are, but just figuring out a process, you know what I mean? And being disciplined to that process.
Yeah, I mean,
and then
it
your
was
goals
cool.
will happen.
Yeah, it was cool to hear you say day by day, just staying in the moment, chipping away each day, just to keep knocking, I guess. And I really enjoyed listening to you talk about networking. That's what I call it. I guess that's one goal that I had when I came into college, is just to network, get with as many people as I can, form relationships, pick their brain, be able to grow not only as a wrestler, I mean, obviously form relationships with my teammates and coaches, but also know every teacher in my department. I could say that every teacher that I've had in my major and in my grad program, I've formed a pretty good relationship with. And it's like, knowing that I have them on my side too helps. It's like, hey, if I ever got a question about this or that, and I can go to them and be like, yeah, how did you get there? Or how'd you use this experience? What helped you get through grad school, or what helped you get through your doctorate program?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
just applying all those in life too.
Yeah, that's incredible, Lance. Yeah, there's another cliche saying out there that I love to overuse that says your network is your net worth. So I want to be a multimillionaire. Well, I got to hang out with multimillionaires. You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. There's another cliche saying. So yeah, again, I want to get better at wrestling. I need to go hang out with Coach Reinwan. Like you guys. You
Yep.
guys are just, again, that's so cool. You guys are rubbing shoulders with Olympian Doug Schwab, national champion Drew Foster, all these. You guys just walk into a room, there's all these animals in there. They're gonna raise your guys' level. You're gonna raise their levels. I mean, I've heard of studies. You take an employee that's kind of an underachiever in a business, and you put his desk or his cubicle right next to a guy that's a super overachiever, like I know you two are, and give it 6 months, that underachiever is going to start raising his level. It just happens. So I mean, yeah, just being around those, there's just so many benefits, like you say, to what you're doing. Whatever you decide to do after college here, your professors and these people you're networking with, they may know someone that can mentor you and open a door for you, or whatever it may be, and it just may it'll make a huge difference.
Yeah, and then I heard you talk about self-confidence. Sorry, Gary, you can go.
No, I was just gonna add, I saw something too, like you're one individual or one connection away from living a life that you want to, or going about things in life that in a way you want to. Like you never know what a relationship can bring to you, and not only to yourself, but what you can give back to them too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge motivator, and like having those relationships is also being able to give back. I guess for me at least, it's like, how can I help this person too? It's not just like, how can they help me? I'm not even thinking about that. It's more like, how can I help them? I know I'm going to get better in the process as I'm helping them. So
yeah, it's awesome that you say that, Lance, and that makes me think, like you guys are building your brand. Yeah, you're building the Elite Wrestling Club brand here with this awesome podcast, but you're building your own personal brands and your reputation and how you guys carry yourselves every single day and how you treat others. And that means so much. I've seen it in like people I went to school with, they'll come back and get insurance from me or whatever it may be. And it's like, I know I didn't do things perfect, but clearly I must have treated people with respect in high school, and never really was too impressed with myself through any sort of wrestling accomplishments or anything in high school or anything, or these people wouldn't come to me and want to do business with me and trust me, with whatever it may be. So it's like everything you're doing, you're building a reputation for yourself, and it's going to mean so much. Like, it's so cool for me. You two are just light years ahead of where I was at 21, 22 years old. Light years ahead of it. Like, to hear you guys talk and the things you're doing and what you understand and what you're already have done. But, I mean, just for me, like, I see it like, coaching Garrett, mentoring Garrett. Well, then we've met some people in Lodi, that are very successful in their careers and their business, and they're finding like lucrative job offers and different things that they want to, internships. And hey, Garrett, you should. Why? Because they met Garrett, and the way he marches and the way he carries himself, they want to help him. They want to help him get a job and a career like right out of college. That's just really, way higher income than your average American. It's like, how are you stepping right? Well, you're stepping right into that because from day one, when we met you, this is how you carried yourself. These opportunities are not being offered to, young people that maybe aren't respectful or, aren't hardworking, just, aren't driven. And, that's just my thought when you were saying that. Like, it's just so important, and it's going to pay dividends how you guys are doing things.
Yeah. Kind of tying into that too. I had a question I was thinking about last night for you, Nick, is like, what do you want your legacy to be in life? that's something I've been kind of thinking about. I know I'm still young, but I think that's built every day, and that's what my legacy is going to be later in life is happening right now by the things I'm doing. So like, what do you want to be known for in life? Or
Yeah, man, you guys are asking some good questions. So, yeah, it to me it's pretty simple. I'm a pretty simple guy, as you know. I want my legacy to just to be someone that people think about and they're just like, yeah, this is Nick was you know always a guy that was willing to help out and really cared for others. You know, like he was always looking out for his fellow mankind, not just family and friends, but you know, faith is a big part of my life. So definitely like how I treat others. I mean, you can't call yourself a Christian if you're not, you know, willing to pour into people, and just like for me, there's just so much more. Like I want to excel in business, but it's not to make a bunch of money. It's more so I want to. I mean, I do because I want to be generous, but I want, beyond wrestling, I'd love to be like a coach someday that could offer young people. I know Garrett and I have talked about this from like financial things. You know, uh, life can get a lot better for people, and you can have the time to slow down, like we talked about, and engage in critical thought and really develop as a human being if you're not every day wondering how you're going to pay your bills. How am I going to pay rent? How am I going to buy groceries? How am I going to feed my kids? Or how am I going to, feed myself and fix my car to get to work? So if my legacy could really be, you know, yeah, just a lot more than just making money and being a successful businessman, but really imparting and teaching people, you know, how to make their lives better, and I do believe, again, like we talked about, like, no, money isn't everything, but you can't hide from the fact that it's so important. It's so important to be a good steward of your money. I mean, I could go down, as Garrett knows, I could go down a lot of rabbit holes, but like house hacking, they call it, and things like that. I suggest all you guys do that. Like, you know, again, like I said, I could go down that rabbit hole all day of just the things that young people should be doing. You know, there's just so many young people that don't get that mentorship. It's awesome. Garrett, I mean, this the turn of events in your life. Like, what if you would have stayed in the Madison school district? Well, you get into the bigger cities, they're not getting as, and that's sad to me. I have a heart for those kids. When we were talking about, hey, some kids are disrespectful, and you guys at your guys' age, they don't listen, or they're, unfortunately, those kids just didn't have great mentors. Maybe they didn't have, parents that were teaching them those things and coaches that came and walked alongside them and things like that. We're as fortunate you guys did. I'm not. I'm definitely, I'm as average Joe as an average Joe can be. I have an average IQ, everything else, but I had awesome mentors. And you see people that are not excelling in life and doing ridiculous things, or, having a really tough go of things. They definitely have, just as smart as me and just as talented as me. Unfortunately, maybe just they didn't have great mentorship, So yeah, like I said, yeah, it's just real simple. I want my legacy to be someone that cares for others and positively impacts the next generation. Is, I always just say, like, the point of a man's life is to positively impact the next generation. And again, like I said, like, yeah, pass that along to Doug Schwab in company. But like, those guys just really seem like, man, when they're on their deathbed someday, hopefully a long time in the future, like, you can look back and go, my life really positively impacted the next generation. And yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And then you talked a little bit about like your self awareness, your self reflection, the way that you're able to reflect on things that not only went well but also went wrong, or different failures and setbacks and things. And then you talked about self confidence and how you keep that on a scale where it's almost like having humility. And I got a post coming out tomorrow. Obviously, this podcast won't be posted till Monday, but it talks a little bit about self-confidence and humility. And there is a difference between the two, and you can still have humility and be self-confident. And that's one thing that I struggle with. It's like I want to honor humility, but I almost honor it so much that I don't allow myself to have confidence. You know what I mean? I don't believe in myself because I honor humility so much, and it's almost it's something you got to be able to balance, I think. And hearing you talk about that helps a little bit. And I guess I'm just wondering where you kind of developed the ability to be able to reflect on yourself and have that awareness of, okay, I need to make changes here. Okay, I need to help this guy along because, you know, maybe he showed up and he had a bad week this week at work. How can I help bring him along?
Yeah. The B word, I told Garrett like a year ago, I think, you know, balance was like a theme in my life, because sometimes, you know, certain things get out of balance. You work too much, you know, then your relationships suffer and things like that. But yeah, that's an awesome question again. And I don't know that I have all I do know I don't have all the answers, but just the difference between self-confidence and pride, and like, you know, how important it is. You have to believe in yourself, right? Yeah, I mean, I think there's a big difference between thinking you're better than other people. That's not good. You should never think you're better than other people. But yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know, like I just remember at a young age, maybe just being born with it to the point where I don't think I'm better than anybody, but I also don't think people are better than me either. You know, I just remember at a young age, like, again, back in, you know, the era where like everybody was competition, like it really bothered me at a very young age that people were, you know, winning state titles and I wasn't. And it wasn't like it wasn't like something like where I was ever like, I can't do that. It was like, no, I work hard. I think I work harder than them. I know if, you know, if we throw down, like, I really think I can, you know, my force of will can take them. Like, I should be doing exactly what they're doing if they can do it. You know what I mean? And like, just really looking at that and just being like, you know, if this person can do it, I can do it. You know, if it's something I really want to do and I set my mind to it, I know I can figure it out. I know I can achieve this. I know I can get it done, you know, regardless of how long it takes. You know, I think that's a big part of it. But yeah, I mean, I definitely, yeah, from a career standpoint and things like that, the cool thing is you have more time. You know, time is on your side. Obviously, when you're an athlete, the clock is ticking. You know, that's just kind of so it makes it fun too, right? But yeah, it's just a cool thing, I think, and having the confidence to just, you know, what you guys are doing is incredible, and like, just maybe, as everybody already knows, right? Like, not everybody already talks about that. Like, don't focus on the results, you know, focusing on what you can control in your execution. And man, if you just prepared super, super well, you know, that's going to give you confidence, you know. And yeah, I don't know, from the humility standpoint, I think that's awesome that you really focus on that and that you have that, but also knowing too, like, you know, being really self-confident and believing in yourself. You shouldn't ever feel bad about that, you know. I mean, Garrett, I remember when we were talking about remember The Last Dance came out, and like Michael Jordan and things like that, and he's just like, you know, I'm going off on a tangent now, I'm bringing up basketball on a wrestling podcast, but you know, how he was just talking about how people were like, oh, Michael Jordan, he's a tyrant, look how he treats people and stuff like that. And Michael Jordan's like, people that say that, you say that because you probably never won anything, you know. And he's like, the thing about Michael Jordan was, you ask all my teammates, I never asked them to do anything I wouldn't do myself, you know. And it's just like, you know, having that self-confidence. If someone, you know, maybe humility is like, I have no idea. Maybe, but sometimes, humility can be like, for some people, like, well, people will criticize me if I, outwardly believe in myself or things like that. Again, that might just be those people's like insecurity and lack of self-confidence, and they don't want to see you outgrow them or go to the next level and reach your potential. And just, I would say, like, you gotta be comfortable with that, right? Like, you're always going to get criticized. Don't be afraid to go and be great and achieve your potential. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
there's a huge difference between being like, man, I know I can beat that guy. I know I can beat that guy, or I know I can have a multi-million-dollar business. I know I can do it. And I know I've experienced this. Maybe you guys have before too, where I've had people look at me and be like, "Yeah, you're kind of arrogant. Why are you saying that? Why are you thinking that?" And it's like, that's not arrogant. I'd give anybody the shirt off my back. I just believe in myself, you know? So I don't know, that's just my thoughts on that. And just like listening to the one of my new favorite authors, like, he talks about how, like, he just thought at a young age, he's like, certain rules don't apply to me. Like, certain people, like, certain rules don't apply to me. Well, that kind of sounds arrogant, but he's just like, well, you shouldn't be able to go do this. Well, maybe that's a rule that applies to most people. Doesn't apply to me. I think I can go do this. You know what I mean?
Yep. And that's
Yeah.
going back to like Lance's question. Like that's something I've dealt with too with confidence. Is like I'm like a very result person, I think. So like and I still deal with it too. Is like I connected my confidence with the things I did. So like, which you can't be doing because like if I'm not getting the results in something, or maybe it's not working right away, then obviously my confidence is going to vary.
Hmm.
So I think too, just not having your confidence tied with results, but with who you are as a person. Like, am I reaching out to my family members? Am I
Yeah.
giving back? Am I living the lifestyle I want to live? Things like that. Like, almost have your confidence in how you're going about life compared to what you're getting out of life. That's something that's been helping me, and I mean, I still struggle with that too. Is um, tying that with my results, but it's definitely got better.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's great. I don't know. I just like, I've read about that, and it's just like how important it is. Like, I want to talk to my youth wrestlers, talk to my nephew about it someday. It's a habit I want to have with my future children. It's like, brag about what you failed at. You know what I mean? Like you said, like, yeah, that's very normal, and you're absolutely going to gain more confidence as you succeed, right? Like, Jordan Burroughs wasn't full of confidence, and when he was a junior in high school and hadn't won a state title yet, like he is now, from a wrestling standpoint, right? But I think sometimes you just have to, like, flip a mentality on its head, engage in critical thought, like we talked about, and flip a mentality on its head. Like, okay, why do I feel like I need to be so humble and I can't, be as self confident as I know I need to be? Or, why am I waiting for these results to happen, which I don't really have any control over, to really reach the next level and be super confident? When it's like, what if I looked at it this way? Like, most people are afraid of failure, right? Like, what if, and what leads to success? Again, I heard you talking about it. You two were talking about it in your original podcast. You're talking about, like, it'd be pretty boring to talk to someone who was just like, yeah, I succeeded at everything I do. I never failed. Like, it just, you know, almost
Yeah,
like these super lucky guys. Some people could look at a Gable Steveson and be like, and the guy just wins everything. Well, I'm sure he's had some struggles growing up too that we didn't maybe see. But for some people in certain endeavors, it just comes easy to them. They're going to have struggles in other endeavors in life, guaranteed. Nobody just kills it in every single area of life all the time, but if you can start, like, developing that mindset, like, when you were reading off my resume, it was funny. I was laughing. I was like, yeah, quite a few of those business things you're saying, like, did not go well. Did not, the easy wrestling. Hey, we gave it a shot, but I don't miss it, and it didn't go well. You know what I mean? I've had many business endeavors. Warren Buffett, the great, all those guys, they talked about, they've all failed. You're gonna have failed investments. You just need to have some that really kill it. You can have a bunch that fail. As long as you got one that really kills it and carries you through, you're doing great. You know what I mean? And just like that book again, Rich Dad Poor Dad, talks about that. Like, and I want to talk to my youth wrestlers, and like, they come out And hopefully I did that for you, Garrett, from time to time. Definitely was not a perfect coach, but there's times where you go out and you're wrestling someone that's at the next level and you throw down and wrestle as hard as you can. You come off, man, your parents and your coaches should be like, you got beat, whatever, maybe you got pinned even, but that was awesome. You went out and tried your best and you failed. You know what I mean? If you're a young entrepreneur, you're a young business owner, whatever it is, you go out and you put in the work to learn as much as you can, and you try a business and it fails and it has to be shut down and you got to move on to the next thing. That is something we celebrate. That is incredible. You had the intestinal fortitude to go try something. And that's what most people don't have. And I guarantee you learned so much from that failure that you're going to carry forward in the next thing you choose to do. And it's going to be the reason why. Eventually, you're going to find some serious success. You just can't learning to have the courage to not fear failure and let it shut you down.
Yeah, to just keep trying. I mean, keep knocking like you talked about. And it's an everyday thing. It's funny you mentioned like different strategies and stuff that you've used and some advice, but I was wondering if you had any other tips or tricks when people are looking to start their own business, or when they're young and they don't really know what to do, but they know they're called to not sit in a cubicle, right? They got energy, they have ideas. It's just, really putting yourself out there and starting a business. Do you have any other tips or tricks for that?
I don't know. I guess just thinking again, we talked about just like, I think try to find a mentor. Sit down with someone who maybe, you can really, really trust, that's a morally sound person that's doing well in their business, and pick their brain, have breakfast with them, whatever. Maybe shadow them if they'll let you. I definitely reflect back and I wish I would have, again, me not necessarily loving the academic route. I wish it would have been great for me to come right out of high school and go mentor, somebody around the Madison area that was killing it in real estate, and just learn the all the different hats you got to wear and all the different skills, and just, hey, I'll work for free, whatever, I don't care, I'll figure it out and I'll work for free if I can just pick your brain, because I know that this knowledge is going to pay off so much in the future. You know what I mean? I don't need to make the money right now. What I need to do right now is be a student of life, So yeah, I think just kind of having a real long-term vision, when I want to be mentored by someone, first thing I do is like, okay, how can I add some value to you? Is there something like, I don't need to make money right now. Right now, what I need to do is teach you that I'm a person that it's worth pouring into, and help you out in any way I can, and then just, because that's going to help you really figure out if this business is going to be, again, I'm a simple guy. Like, I like real estate because it's housing. I don't think, Elon Musk or someone is going to come up with something. Well, maybe I shouldn't doubt that guy, but like where people don't still need apartments, don't still need housing, don't need a place to keep the rain off their head and keep them warm in the winter, and things like that. So again, you gotta follow your head, and your heart. Does it make sense?
Going with that, do you kind of want to touch on, you mentioned it to me during like breakfast and stuff when we meet up, simplifiers and multipliers?
Yeah. Okay, man. Okay. Yeah, that goes back to my favorite, one of my new favorite authors again, Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy, and they just got so many awesome books and podcasts, and that's like a little mini book that's an easy read, but essentially he breaks people down into, like, especially like entrepreneurs, but it's like you're in two categories. Either you're a simplifier or you're a multiplier, and simplifiers take complex tasks and break them down. Like, I think like one that just pops in my head is Henry Ford, right? He started the assembly line and building automobiles and just crushed it eventually, right? So, yeah, I mean, they said Steve Jobs was definitely a multiplier. They said, and there was a guy I can't remember his name, behind the scenes, he was the simplifier, with Apple, and that he doesn't get a lot of credit or near as much. But yeah, like every business, you really simplifiers need to link up with multipliers. You know what I mean? So yeah, maybe one of you guys is right now is a simplifier, and one of you guys is a multiplier. But for me, I know I'm just a really simple guy. You can ask Garrett my philosophies on wrestling or whatever it may be. I keep it super, super, super simple. You know what I mean? Because I don't know, maybe it's just more overwhelming to me to even get started when it's really complicated. But so anytime I can look at a really, really big task, like, okay, I've never built an apartment before. I've never built a duplex before. Okay, how can I? This seems really complex. Has to be. There's plumbers, electricians, building permits, zoning, yada yada yada. How can I break this down and simplify it? And I think just like documenting every step of the way. If you guys are going to be business owners, you have to have those, they call them SOPs, standard operating procedures, of how you do everything. And just documenting it every step of the way, breaking it down, simplifying it. So it's like, well, this was like they said, like Henry Ford, like line was like, nothing's that complex when you break it down into small steps. Building an automobile sounds really complicated. Well, Henry Ford broke it down into steps and created an assembly line. So a whole bunch of people had a little simple job, and the end result was this complex automobile, and so that's what simplifiers do. They break it down, and then multipliers essentially are gonna be a guy that comes in, has a different mindset, a man or woman that comes in and really spreads it. Man, I'm thinking like marketing maybe, they link up and really takes it to a whole new level. You know what I mean? Like, how can we get multiple assembly lines going? Or yeah, like I say, I just think in this day and age, for me, like, I remember last summer, Garrett, like we were talking about, like with the Ziegler Affordable Homes thing. I'm a simple man. I want to go out. I'm genetically coded to go out, meet with people in these communities where I can find a profitable flip, and spend some time with them, building a relationship, gaining their trust, to basically to get a property to make some money on, and set my crew up for success and oversee that process. I'm not really a social media guy. I don't know how to make these sweet videos like Garrett does and things like that. Not that I don't believe in myself that I couldn't figure it out if I wanted to. If I really, really set my mind to it, I could. I'm confident I could figure it out. But that wouldn't be a valuable use of my time when I could be going out, again, simplifying the process, going out, networking, what I'm genetically coded to do, what I'm best at. That's my most lucrative skill that I can't. It's harder to teach someone how to go out and create relationships with another human being in 5 minutes, when you step in their office and meet them.
Yeah.
So I linked up with Garrett, and he made some really sweet, like basically promo videos, what my business does, where we have this hunk of junk, and then here's the end result where it looks awesome. And I'm using those, Garrett, on a weekly basis, sending them off people, and they're just like, and I've had breakthroughs because people watch Garrett's videos. I've had people, I call them up, before, and they follow the social media page, and they're like, oh yeah, I liked your, Facebook page, and I've seen what you do. Yeah, I'll work with you. It's like, all right, well, good job, Garrett. That worked. You know what I mean? Like, so Garrett was a multiplier for me, and I'm the simplifier in the Ziegler Affordable Homes business. So did I explain that at all? Well,
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah, and I guess my last question too that ties with that is, I know when we met up a few weeks ago, I talked about like it's hard being in the present a lot, especially when you have so much going on. Like, you have a ton of things on your plate. There's things I'm starting to try to add to my plate, and it's like sometimes you almost like, I'm just like going, like I'm walking, I'm going to work, I'm working on these things, but I'm like still in my head. Like, it doesn't, like, there'll be like an hour or two that passes. I'm like, wow, like it doesn't even feel like I was in the present.
yep.
And I guess, do you have any tips for that? I know you talked about getting rid of social media lately. Does that help with trying to be in the present? Or
Yeah, 100%. Definitely our phones don't help, smartphones and things like that, and constantly being pinged, and that's a difficult thing in real estate too, unless you have a property manager, even call you up and go, hey, my air conditioner stopped working, or I have a leak in, my toilet, whatever it may be. So there's going to be those challenges. But I think, man, if you get this figured out ever someday, Garrett, please let me know, and definitely patent it, because I think, like, again, all of us, like, that ADD, that super energetic, like, your mind just doesn't really stop much. That's why wrestling can be a great outlet for young guys too, right? In that way. But yeah, I think just not being afraid of turning your phone off, or at least putting it on silent, not looking at it. I think that definitely helps. And just for me, like, getting a weekly planner and breaking down my day. You know what I mean? There are certain times, like weekends or Sundays and things like that, where we're all process oriented, goal oriented guys, right? Like, we love achieving. I mean, I'm not trying to speak for you guys, but I'm just assuming that's probably the way you are. So, like, for me, I have a daily planner, and things that have helped is, like, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm making phone calls to try to acquire new relationships and new business deals. That's what I do on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Thursday, I'm doing my insurance business. You know what I mean? Friday, I'm out in the field, driving around, inspections, meeting, seeing how my crew's doing, whatever it may be. You know what I mean? And then Saturdays and Sundays, my goal maybe is to, really connect with my girlfriend and spend time with her and give her, not that I just forget about her all Monday through Friday, but yeah, Saturday, Sundays, volunteer day, church day, whatever, you know what I mean? So it's like in my daily planner, and these are the things I want to achieve with this day. And it's right down to it's planned out. And that kind of helped me too, because sometimes, like, I'm sure, again, we go back to, like, we have so many ideas and goals, and like, oh man, when am I going to get to this? Like, I don't have time and I want to. It's frustrating. I'll write that on my weekly planner like 2 weeks out. Like, okay, 2 weeks out on Wednesday, I'm going to get to this. And then when I put it down on a piece of paper, and I know when that day comes and I flip it, it's going to get my attention and I'm going to go after it. But then I feel like I can offload that off my mind a little bit, and kind of, I don't know, yeah. It's like letting the nervous system, or I've heard, kind of relax a little bit,
Yeah, no, that helps a lot, because, like, I told you, like, there's nights where, like, you think, okay, I'm going to go to bed and get my rest, but, like, you're just, like, by the time I put my head on the pillow, like, you're still thinking for another, like, 15 minutes of ideas, what you're going to do, things you could do better, or things you have to do. So, no, that helps a lot.
Yeah, writing those things out and getting them out of your head, I think, is going to help you be able to a little bit. But good luck, man. I just think as you get older, you just learn how to deal with it a little better. But I don't think there will be, I'll be an old man with a cane someday. Garrett's still telling you, like, man, my mind's always spinning. You know what I mean? And that's fun though too, right? You want to have ambitions, not what's more sad than someone who's just, like, living in the past, like, oh, I used to be awesome and this was so great and stuff like that. It's just like, I'd rather talk to someone and be like, I'm really excited about trying to achieve this and trying to do this in the future and help more people. You know what I mean? Like, your ambition's got to be a lot bigger than your past achievements.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say too, Garrett, just being able to write those things down and get them out of your head, because, I mean, that's a trick in itself, is being able to shut your mind off and, like, okay, now's my time to relax. You know what I mean? When I lay in bed, now's my time to rest and get ready for tomorrow. So being able to write those things down and just have it ready, on a to-do list for the morning when you wake up, it's like, okay, I can shut this off now. I can shut my mind off. I can go to sleep. And when I wake up, then we can tackle those things.
Yep.
That's kind of one thing we talked about in my first semester at grad school, is because we had this big thesis, right? We have a whole semester to write it, but it's like, you have the whole semester, but you're only going to do it in the last few weeks. For whatever reason, everybody's going to wait until the last few weeks to really hone in on this thing and get it done. You got 30 pages to write, or whatever it is. And it's like, our professor we would have, like, lectures about, like, different strategies and ways to plan, like Nick was talking about. And there's like certain days of the week that we're just naturally more productive. So it's like and just for yourself, you got to figure out with yourself, it's like, well, if Monday I wake up and I'm just extremely motivated for the week, then I need to be able to have a plan set for Monday where it's like, I can get this, and this done, because my mind's always racing on Mondays. I'm ready to go for the week. I have a lot of energy and I can use this day to be really productive. And, Tuesday might be different. Tuesday might be a day where it's like, man, I really just want to do this one thing in the morning and sit around and, not do much. That could be your Sunday, so.
Yeah. I love that. That, again, like I said, just kind of points to how far ahead you guys are at your age than I was at that age. That's awesome that you know that, Lance, and that's so true. Like, there's a reason why I told Garrett, like, hey, let's do this at 7:30 in the morning. I'm a morning person, definitely wasn't when I was in college, but my brain's at its peak in the morning hours. That's, like you say, I know if I'm going to get a workout in for the day, it better be in the morning, because otherwise the day gets taken over. And then by the end of the day, I don't have as much energy. If we were trying to do this interview and this podcast at 7:30 at night, I'd be I wouldn't be at my best, you know what I mean? And just kind of understanding myself, some people are night owls. One's not better than the other, just different, and kind of knowing yourself when you're at your peak is when you're doing those critical tasks, not getting tied up in, like, you can have a super long to-do list. So I got to do this and this, figure out what are the things that are really going to move the needle. And those are the ones that get prioritized, and just like, that's a cool thing about wrestling too, is you guys know, you treat your business someday in your career just like you treat your wrestling career. Okay, well, if you guys are prepping for some high level competition, you need to be getting proper sleep and proper rest. You need to be putting the right fuel in your body, and just things like that, taking care of yourself. I think that's something that's real easy to lose as a business owner, and later on in life, is you quit taking care of yourself, and you're just like, I'm so busy, I got so many things I want to do, why don't I just sleep 6 hours a night? You know what I mean? Well, studies show there's very rare is there a human being that doesn't need at least 7 hours of sleep to function at their best and to be the healthiest they can be. I need to be prioritizing, 7 to 8 hours of sleep, just things like that.
Yeah, man, this has been awesome. I guess usually I wrap up with a few rapid fire questions. So just to get to know you a little bit, what's your favorite home cooked meal?
Favorite.
Can't say
Again,
Dickie.
too, like, I think man, I love a lot of food, but I think as you get older, it's just steak, man. A good steak is just outstanding, kind of learning how to make those. And yeah, like a filet mignon with some bacon wrapped around it, done about medium. Go. Yeah, that's an easy answer. So,
Yeah, what's your favorite movie?
Oh man, you got it. It's like it depends on the week. I'm thinking Dumb and Dumber, because there was a line in there that Garrett used on us one time in high school. You know where I'm going with this?
Yeah, I do.
Where where he's like, "I'm only human, Harry," when he's like, "You drove a sixth of a mile across the country in the wrong direction," and he's like, yells at him, he's like, "I'm only human, Harry." So one time we went to pick Garrett up for a morning workout, and pull up to his house, and it's dark. Nobody's awake. Normally Garrett was like right on time. We're like, what the heck? So had to like knock on the door and wake him up and get him out of bed. And I think it was Cody that picked you up, right?
Yep.
And he's like, what the heck, dude? Like, normally you're ready to go. And Garrett's like, I'm only human. So yeah, and I love Dumb and Dumber. So we're gonna go with that for Garrett, and because that's just a great comedy.
What's your favorite sports team or teams?
Favorite sports team? You guys delete this podcast if I don't obviously say the correct answer here. But
no, man.
Yeah.
I mean, NFL, NBA,
no,
whatever.
I'm a weird dude in that way. I only follow wrestling. Don't really care about any other sport.
All right.
I did hear
I think I
rumors
know
that
you.
Aaron Rodgers is not with the Packers anymore. Garrett, is that true?
Yeah, it's a done deal. He's with the Jets now. A little
Okay,
sad about that, but
interesting. He's just following Favre's footsteps completely, huh?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. But growing up, when I was in high school, Minnesota wrestling was outstanding. The University of Minnesota. Went to Jay
Yep.
Robinson's wrestling camps. He was just incredible. So that was the Minnesota Gophers. Following their wrestling team was really really good. Um, but now, yeah, clearly, if there's any team I'm rooting for, obviously, is as soon as Garrett went to Northern Iowa, and obviously with him there, and then hearing the job that Doug does even after Garrett graduates and stuff like that. You know, I follow people more than sports teams. I love hearing about awesome athletes in other sports like Michael Jordan in basketball or you know whatever. But yeah, I really think Doug's doing a really really neat thing. So I like the job he does, and that's about what I follow is wrestling. USA Wrestling. I'm excited for Final X. But yeah, I think probably one of your guys' rivals, but I think Brian Smith is another guy that seems like he just runs an outstanding program with a great culture. The University of Missouri, and man, the list could go on. I like the coaches that maybe don't get as much credit as they should, like a Doug Schwab or I think Pat Papalizio in North Carolina, NC State. He's another guy that just seems like he does an outstanding job. You know,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So here you go. Who's your favorite athlete?
he's my favorite athlete. Oh man. I mean, the easy answer. I've always liked Dake. Dake has just been, I don't know, man. He's just how he just dominates people. Just a physical specimen, blasting people and stuff. But yeah, I love Jordan Burroughs too. So I don't know. Garrett and I are pretty stoked about 61 kg Nishan Garrett, right?
yep,
Oh
that's our
I don't
yeah.
know.
boy.
I don't know if he can get Vito, but again, he's just another guy. Like, man, just because I never had it, that's for sure. Is like that fast twitch muscle and just that. Not that those guys are so well trained too, but wow, just freak athletes. Just just outstanding and yeah,
Well, we appreciate you coming on, man. Just want to say thank you. You had a lot of great insights. I learned a lot for sure, and I hope our listeners do too. I mean, I'll probably be re-watching or re-listening to this quite a few times. There's just a
Yeah, I
yeah,
lot of different
appreciate it,
things
Nick.
we talked about. Yeah, it was
yeah. I
fun.
don't know. I don't know. A Nick Zeigler podcast. I told Garrett right away. I'm like, I don't know how much this is going to draw in people, Garrett. But if I send it to my girlfriend and my mom, you guys will have at least two other listeners besides us. So it'll get viewed a
Hey,
couple times for sure.
as long as it helps one person listening, that's a success. So
Yep,
Yeah,
that's all
yeah,
that matters.
absolutely. Yep, yep. So man, I'm excited. Yeah, you guys get Doug on here or someone like that. That'd be super cool too. But yeah, this has
Yeah.
been fun, guys. So really appreciate it.
yeah,
All right, so I just want to say thank you for listening to the Elite Wrestling Club podcast. We hope you found today's episode valuable and enjoyed our exploration of Nick Zeigler. To stay connected with us, hit the subscribe button, never to miss an episode. We release new content every Monday. You can also leave a review on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. Your reviews help us reach more listeners and provide valuable content. And then also visit the Elite Wrestling Club website and follow us on our social media for questions, topic suggestions, or to connect with our community. If you love this episode and you'd like to donate, you can use our Elite Wrestling Club PayPal. It's located on our website. You can go to elitewrestlingclub.store, click podcast, and then you hit the podcast website button in yellow where you will see a donation heart in the top right corner. These donations help us to continue providing great content for you weekly as well as improve our experience for future episodes as well. We have many exciting episodes on the way, so stay tuned and join us next time for some inspiration. Thank you again for being a part of this Elite Wrestling Club podcast world. Keep exploring within to inspire others.